So, a guest is a true polymath of the Indian business landscape, a strategist, a mentor to millions, and a global voice for innovation. He is the director of THEV Consulting, a firm he founded in his mid-20s. Under his leadership, THEV has become a powerhouse of strategic advisory, working with an elite roster of clients from Fortune 500 executives and World Economic Forum young global leaders to alumni of Harvard, Columbia, and University of Pennsylvania. An engineer by training from Anna University, with a distinction in electronics and communication, he seamlessly bridges the gap between technical precision and business intuition. His expertise in startup ecosystem is unparalleled, serving as mentor of change for the Atal Innovation Mission and a dedicated mentor for Startup India since 2017. Whether it's Seed Stars World, Startup Weekend, or Global EdTech Awards, his seat at the jury table is a testament to his eye for disruptive potential. But his impact stretches far beyond the boardroom. In 2019, his commitment to a better world was globally recognized when he was conferred the title of Global Ambassador of Human Rights and Peace. A thought leader whose insights have graced platforms from Wall Street Journal, partner networks to the Feature Times. He's here today to help us navigate the complexities of strategy and organizational effectiveness. So please give a huge round of applause once again for the mentor and the global ambassador, Mr. Monce Abraham.
First of all, sir, we the E-Cell team is very honored to have you here, and I'm grateful to host you today. So, we'll be starting. Anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Just before we start, just giving a quick shout out to you, Yuyutsu, and the entire DTU E-Cell team. It's always a pleasure and honor being here, and we are much looking forward to this session. Take care.
Thank you so much, sir. So, let's start with the questions, guys. So the first question is, sir, you work closely with founders, CEOs, and leadership teams across the world. From your experience, what truly differentiates ideas that remain ideas from those that become real companies?
Thanks for this question. Yeah. So obviously everything boils down to the execution part of it, right? So you definitely have your idea part of it, but then it's all about execution. So when you think of execution, you again have this team stepping in. So the companies which go on to actually make more things happen is where you've obviously tripped on a great idea, you refined it further via execution, but at the same time you have a good team complementing you and helping you grow the company bigger. And there also I would just slightly touch upon the thing that you have to incentivize your team really well. So because at the end of the day, it's all about, are you ensuring, the best talent that you have, they continue working with you towards building a bigger and better company. So that's something which is always going to help you.
All right. So for students starting out, how should they evaluate whether an idea is worth pursuing before investing time, money, or reputation into it? Basically, sir, that there is a lot of ideas that we have, but how should we evaluate our ideas? What should be the parameters on which we should judge that whether the idea is worth pursuing for the rest of your life or is it not?
So one thing I would always say is that as students, the good thing that you have is you have the time on your side, right? So in terms of the first thing is obviously the idea validation part of it. So you can just either and you don't have to really go out and build a company altogether when you're still in your student days, right? You can always even look for companies in the specific sector you're targeting. You can either work with some of the good companies, even Series A onwards. So any company which has raised say 20 crores or plus in India, they would still be having very small teams, because if you go to a very, very large organization, the chances that they'll give you a lot to work on is very less, right? But if you go to a still growing organization which might have raised just say 20 crores or something, and they are in a company in a sector which you are interested in, you like the thing that they're working on, you feel that if you can get in over there and work on a few things, you'll get to learn a lot in terms of execution and stuff. But otherwise, if you're trying to pursue it as a company from the word go, then I would say that you work on the multiple things in terms of really building a company, right? First is the idea validation part of it, where are more people really, is there an actual demand in the market for it? Is there any way you can charge the people for it? How are you going to make the company work? How are you going to make the revenues work, right? How are you going to get the people to join you in terms of the team building part of it, right? So are you able to get your core team? Are you able to get your co-founding team? And for that, DTU has a good ecosystem, right? So you have events like these where you would be not only interacting with, leaders from DTU itself, but you'll also have, interested folks in the startup ecosystem coming from other colleges and who might be also looking at the same sector, right? So you never know. The more you actually interact with a lot of people, the more you, work on your idea, on the execution part of it, you'll just, the steps just keep on appearing. But having said that, I would say that, you don't have to be in a rush. Everyone is doing well. Aram se apna time lo, work with a lot of companies and just see how it goes from there.
Right. And because we are discussing this question, so there has been one question that we've been asking our guests from yesterday, and we've got a lot of different perspectives on it. So the question is, a lot of our audience is right now in their graduation years, and right now they have to make the decision that should they pursue post-graduation or should they just go out for the idea and start working on it. What is your perspective on it? Should a person value studies and complete their education and go for post-graduation and MBA degrees, or working on a startup can get you more learned?
It's never a either or kind of thing, right? So koi bhi ek path jo hai, that's not the right path, and there's no fixed way to reach success, right? So I would say that, so if you look at the example of Ather, for example, right? So Ather was basically two students who started out in college itself, and they said, okay, and they were working on something totally different in the earlier days, right? They were working on battery swapping, and then eventually shifted to vehicles altogether. So but what they did was, obviously they went the different ways. Let's try out working and all those things also. But agar aap mein wo कीड़ा है, right, or जो fire है कि यार this is something which we need to work on, and either technically or in terms of the scaling part of it and the other aspects of the company, right? If that's something that you really want to do, I would say don't make it कि आपका एक ही रास्ता है करने का, कि आपको post graduation नहीं करना है या फिर post graduation करने के बाद ही होगा. I would say if you're crazy enough about it, you'll figure out, even work on it over the weekends. You'll work, after your work hours. So for example, even my own example jo hai, I moonlighted for almost 18 months. So I had a 10 to 6 job. I was still working from evening 7 till morning 2 o'clock. उन दिनों में Skype होता था. We didn't have, Zoom and stuff. So Skype pe, whether someone is in India or outside, we were trying to make things happen. And after 18 months, I said, ki, theek hai, let's transition full time into this. So I would say just, the main thing is, are you maniacal about the problem? Are you improving your knowledge about, the problem that you're working on, either technically? Again, I'll come back to the eighth example, right? So battery swapping, they've realized that, it wasn't really something feasible. They'll have to build the entire full stack, which is there. And over there also, because of the time that they've put in, 10 to 15 years, they built moats around the entire engineering part of it. Dikhne mein lagta hai ki, any of the bigger companies can come in and just simply disrupt them. But it doesn't happen because they've actually worked on those things. So wo jo, that only comes from your obsession and solving those problems at a very, very minute level. So I would say don't limit yourself. If you really want to work, you will find a way to work on it. Either आप evenings में करोगे, आप weekends को करोगे, या फिर जब वो time आएगा कि ठीक है. But I would also say one more thing, that when you're starting out, you should always have a financial plan या फिर financial backup for at least 3 years. So आपको at least 3 साल के लिए अगर आप वो stress ले सकते हो, आप वो रगड़ा ले सकते हो कि so then it's much better. At least have 30 to 50 lakhs जो है bare minimum. Even when you're working, I have examples of companies, people who are working in companies who are coming to us, and 2 of the companies haven't worked out for them, right? So, and they now want to, instead of joining one of the companies, they want to start their own company. Right. So it's the same thing that I've shared with them, that build a buffer of at least 30 to 50 lakhs. अगर आप और कर सकते, nothing like it, but 30 to 50 lakhs जो है आपको वो है to spend on the company. 30 to 50 lakhs to spend on the company. In addition to that, can you sustain yourself for 3 years, right? Bare minimum 3 years. So you have to plan accordingly for that, and then you can definitely go forward with it.
Right. and you just told us that how you started out, and backstage when we were discussing it with you told us that by the time you were 25, you started feeling restless and felt that you could do something better and create a better impact in your life and for others. I myself feel it sometimes, and right now many talented future entrepreneurs are still stuck in a 9 to 5 job. What do you think such people should do? Should they quit their job, or should they start working on their ideas side by side?
So first things first, if you're working in a company, सबसे पहले अपने legal जो agreements है वो एकदम सही कर लो आप, right? You have to check your legal agreements as to what the company says. Are you working with the resources? What happens if you're working on the company time and all those things, right? So I'm giving very super practical advice in terms of, these are real life things which are going to happen. So if you're using the same company laptop for your own company, then that might become an issue in the days ahead. So get a separate laptop altogether, ensure that the clauses permit you to have something, be able to work beyond that company itself. Again, the same thing comes in that, don't quit your job, right away. Obviously start working on it, see the results coming in. Like we have examples of companies coming in where the leaders have done really well corporate, but half of the team has quit full time, half of the team is still in corporate, and they're thinking of fundraising at just 100 units. So that's not something which is going to happen, right? So I would say in that situation, unless and until you see revenues of something like say 25 lakhs per month or 2.5 to 3 crore per annum, that's the stage where you can say that you have some kind of product market fit, right? Usse pehle, you're still figuring it out, I would say. So if you hit that kind of numbers, then you can say that, okay, because usse pehle agar fundraising ke liye jaoge, even the investor will say that, yeah, boss, you're still working a 9 to 5 and you expect us to, take a chance on you when you yourself haven't shown that conviction, right? So that's something, which goes against your company. So try to get the metrics in before hitting the investors. Ensure that you're able to, you yourself have that confidence that you can actually, go into it full time. And then, go for it. If that's really what you really want to do, then you should go for it.
All right. So, at the very early stage, what matters more? Solving a big problem or solving a specific problem extremely well?
So this also boils down to the vision of your company, right? So if the plan is that you eventually want to fundraise, then the idea has to be super big, right? So are you going to be one of the biggest companies in India in that specific thing, right? Because unless you build that vision, if you yourself don't build that vision, then how are you going to sell it to others, right? But having said that, jo vision jo hai, wahan pahunchne ke liye you have to take small steps. So when you're solving the problem, you might solve for one specific thing first, right? So I'll take the example of Zomato for this thing, right? So when this started off in the earlier stage, it was simply a place for foodies to hang out, right? So it was just a cult following, and I believe Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani, who's the father of the startup ecosystem in India, right? So he knew that something similar in terms of food listings, he had made it work for Naukri.com, and he saw potential in that. So from there, obviously they, kept working on it, kept working on multiple things, and eventually the food delivery thing happened, and now they are working on multiple things. There's a Blinkit acquisition which has happened. The company has become eternal. All those things, right? So I would say the vision has to be super big, but don't worry about working on everything from day one. So सबसे पहले जो है आप एक चीज solve करो. If it's food listing, then you become the go-to platform for food listing. I remember I had the honor of having a chat with Dipendra Goyal once, and he told us how the team approached UK. So the only plan that they had was 10 members from India flew out to UK, and all they were doing was simply going to all the separate restaurants. और 10 दिन के बाद जो है, by the time it was New Year's, Zomato had gone live in UK. So that's crazy, right? People literally walking, taking pictures of the menus and putting it online. That was the basic thing. So just if you are going to be the platform for food listings and all, are you the go-to platform for that? So, and then obviously, more things will happen from there. So solve one thing specifically well, become known for it, and then more things will appear from there.
Sure. So, in the early years, how should founders balance growth with financial discipline and runway management? What are your thoughts on that?
So, this is something which, every founder has to be super cognizant about, right? First things first is, it's a kind of dichotomy that you have, right? So, for example, anything which advances your company further, you definitely have to spend on it, but at the same time you have to ensure that you're not making any kind of expenses which can be avoided. So if you're say spending on, say if you're a manufacturing company and you have to get the next best machine जो कि आपका जो inventory बोल रहा जो production को जो है वो double triple कर रहा है, instead of like say having 15 or 20 people working online, that's something that you want to invest in, you have to invest in if it's making your company bigger, better in the days ahead. At the same time, if you feel that there are excesses which you can cut down in your company, that's also something that you have to look upon. So I would say always maintain a healthy runway. I mean, like at least bare minimum 6 months. The ideal is obviously 18 to 24 months, but bare minimum 6 months. So always you should have operationally at hand that even if something is not working and something goes wrong, you're able to like really manage those things. So I would say it's not that you have to be like frugal with everything. जहाँ पे आपकी company bigger better बन रही है, you are getting the best talent on board, you're getting the best machines on board, you definitely have to spend on it. You don't be penny wise and pound foolish. So spend where you have to, but at the other places try to save money where you can.
All right. So we just talked about financial discipline and runway. So there's a lot of hype around fundraising today. So what do you think, when should a founder not raise capital?
So I'll just speak from some of the examples of companies which have come to us and where we have said that we would not be able to really take things forward with them, right? So first things first is, I mean, like obviously the part where you still haven't achieved some kind of product market fit, right? So अगर आपके वो track metrics ही नहीं आए, that you don't have that many customers or that many units have not been sold, and all those metrics aren't there. I mean, like if you go to the investors will push you. They'll never say no to you. They'll always say okay, they'll extend the conversation to 3 to 6 months, but they're still looking at the month-on-month growth. They're still looking at the metrics in terms of user retention, and depending upon what kind of company you're building out, right? So I would say wait out till the product market fit happens. So it's never that you're going to sell just 100 units and then the fundraising happens. It doesn't happen that way. The best investors are looking at the company is going to do well even without us, and they don't want to they have this fear of missing out where they say that we want to be part of that company. So strive towards getting to that product market fit, and it can be a small figure also, like I said, 25 lakhs per month or 2.5 to 3 crore per annum also is something jape you get the indication that if the customer money is coming in at least that much, there is the potential that you can build a much bigger company in terms of that. Second, we have had an example where the company was making money, but the company cap table wasn't really reflecting the value which was there. So we had one of the senior leaders who done extremely well, 50 plus years when he started out, and he started the company, but right now he's crossed 60 plus. He got one of the youngsters in, and he gave only 5% to that specific core team member, and the youngster was, I mean, like still in his 20s, I am pass out and all, right? I mean, like still working hard, made a few things happen, revenue started trickling in, but you can't really take it to the investors, because when you look at the equity split, it's like 5 and 95, and 95 is where the one of the core team members is now ceasing to be operationally active in the company. So ensuring when you're doing the equity part also, ensuring that people are working full time, your entire team, you're incentivizing them, you're taking care of them. If you have co-founders, if you have a core team, ensure you have ESOPs. Operationally, when you go to the investors, you have greater than 70% or at least 80% or 70%. You should have it for the people who are working full time in that. Third example is of a traditional business currently doing 100 crores per annum, but in terms of when you look at their products, the margins are like 2 to 3%. That's because I mean, like they are able to turn around the stock, rotate the stock really fast, right? But 2 to 3% is like very crazy when you're thinking of, I mean, like taking to the investors. So the next step for them as a manufacturing unit is simply, I mean, like do a forward integration and go from say commodity part of it to, I mean, like finished goods, where the margins go up say 10 to 15%, right? So again, after having said that, I mean, like if it's a traditional company, reaching 100 crores is like a 20-year, 30-year journey usually, right? So in that thing, have they really thought about the succession part of it? Does the cap table or the equity reflect all those things? So these are all real things. जहाँ पे कि one example I've given कि आपका revenue नहीं बना. Second example है जहाँ पे आपका revenue थोड़ा बहुत बन गया है. Third is where a company is doing 100 crores plus per annum, right? And these are all real live examples. But in all three of them would not be suited for venture capital. Because venture capital का भी जो churn है, they have a model where they're saying that, we want to, if you're putting in 10 rupees today, can we take out say 20x, within 7 to 10 years framework. So does your business show that kind of, growth? And it's perfectly fine if it doesn't. So if you're building something which is like 100 crores, 150 crores, 200 crores, that's also like pretty good in itself. You might build a, 2 generation, 3 generation, 4 generation, 5 generation kind of great family business. I was seeing this Cycle Pure Agarbatti brand. They're 1,000 crores right now. They're diversified and they're doing extremely well, right? But again, you just have to see what kind of company you're building and, just plan accordingly for that.
Right. So, one last question, sir. You've met a lot of founders, some who are currently building their businesses and some who have already built successful ones. So what is that one skill every entrepreneur must master by the next decade, and that one skill that you've already seen in those founders that are successful till now?
So the non-negotiable skill is problem solving, right? So चाहे आप जो भी आपका skill set है, either you're the maker or the seller, right? These are the two basic things which are there. But you're the problem solver when it comes to your specific skill set. So that's a non-negotiable, because without that, with all the tools at your disposal, you won't be able to really make the company work. So if you're building a good product and your expertise on the product side, can you make the product better and better? Can you make use of new technologies and keep working on those aspects? If you're the seller part of it also, with your team and all that you're taking care of, can you really work on this? When it comes to the decade part of it, when you're looking at how do you really leverage on the next decade, I would say just look at the history part of it, right? So in the 2000s, if you were a good business but you were not looking at the internet revolution happening, and your company did not have a online presence, then you were literally holding the company back. Right. The same thing happened in the 2010s, right? When the mobile revolution happened, when the smartphones became kind of everywhere. So if in the 2010s, if you were building say a taxi company, or you were building something in retail and e-commerce, but you were not looking at the mobile app space, then you were holding back your company again. And so now the next decade which is coming in, we already have something like AI, right? So in AI, if you're not getting some kind of AI proficiency and trying to ride the AI wave, then you're holding back your company. Having said that, there are still companies who've done well and all those things, but I would just say that if there's an additional edge which you can give your company, you should just consider that.
Right. So I believe your answers have been really insightful, sir, and personally I got a lot to learn from them today. We can take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Any question from the audience? Anyone wanting to ask something from sir?
सर, आप हमारे लिए कि एंटरप्रेन्योर्स को कैसे डिफाइन करना चाहेंगे, क्योंकि ये जो न्यू एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं इसमें मोस्टली वर्क्स हम एआई जनरेटेड भी कर लेते हैं, तो एज सच हमें अपनी वर्क टीम पे फोकस करना चाहिए या न्यू एआई इनोवेशंस पे भरोसा करना चाहिए?
Can you just repeat the first half of the question? AI innovations, I got it, but the first half?
सर, फर्स्ट हाफ कि हमें अपने एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप में जैसे हम टीम बिल्ड करते हैं तो मोस्ट ऑफ द वर्क्स आजकल एआई ही हमारे लिए कर देते हैं, तो डू यू बिलीव कि हमें भी एआई पे बिलीव करके उसके साथ टीम बना के आगे ग्रो पे ध्यान देना चाहिए?
That still totally depends, right? There are discussions ki, there will be less than 10 member teams who will go on to build billion-dollar companies in the days ahead. But having said that, I would say it never hurts to get really good people on your team. And then I think this is something which I had shared at the last year's keynote session also, right? So say, again, going back to the maker and the seller. So agar koi technical side pe hai, and they are using AI to get a major advantage in terms of time, in terms of manpower, in terms of computing strength and all those things, I think that's something that you should consider. At the same time, say if you're on working on the selling side of things, so say agar e-commerce or retail ki agar hum baat kare, right? So if you have example of say building personalization for your customer, or say building on the inventory forecasting for your customer, or say dynamic pricing for your customer, those are advantages jo ki you might be leaving out if you're not considering AI in the picture. So I would say there's no one way to do things, but when you have the opportunity to use something like AI jahan pe ki you can get one more advantage for your company, you should definitely consider that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. That was an insightful question. So, finally, we are really honored to have you here, sir. Can we have a huge round of applause for sir? So, the E-Cell Council member team would be felicitating sir right now. So, I would request Ms. Sana, the Creative Secretary of E-Cell DTU, to facilitate.
Thank you.
I'll get this for you, sir.
Finally, thank you so much for this insightful session, sir. Me personally, I will learn from you today, and the questions, I personally wrote them, some of the questions, and I got really thoughtful answers on them, and I believe my audience as well. Thank you so much, guys.
Yes, super glad to you. Just giving a quick shout out to DTU once again, and wishing you all, everyone here, the very, very best here. Take care and all the best.
Thank you, sir.